The Legacy Files with Grant Cameron.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and you're listening to the Legacy Files. We're doing little short episodes. The last one was a little bit long, but we're doing a real short one this time. These are Legacy Files where we look back on different things that Desta and I, my partner, have looked at for many, many years, and we do everything. We take all the paranormal phenomena and we look at them. And today I'm going to talk about a UFO sighting. I've always talked about the fact that I don't really want to see another UFO. I couldn't care less. I'm not really interested in the game or getting in the portal. I remember I was with you, Des. I remember we were going across the desert, and you got the phone call about from Adama indirectly through Paula and through
Ricardo.
Ricardo. The fact that and Terrell knew we were coming to the mountain and there was going to be a program sighting for Mission Rama. This is where they make an actual prediction of the time and the location, and it was dead on what they said. But I remember when it was the idea, and I figured, well, maybe they're going to open a portal. And I was saying to you, do you want to go through the portal? Maybe Katarina wants to go to the portal. I really, really didn't want to do that. I didn't want to sort of get involved. And then I sort of realized, well, I looked like I was sort of the center of attention. So then I said, okay. So then I started fasting and did all this kind of stuff. And when I saw it, it was just flashing over my head. And when Ricardo asked me, well, what do you think? What do you think? And I went, it's kind of cool. And it was like in my head, I was saying, oh, that's total garbage, man. If you'd seen what I saw in 75, that was nonsense. A bunch of flashing lights over my head. I couldn't care less. But then the question, they remember he started doing that automatic writing in a little tiny book in the dark, and his wife was holding the cell phone. And the message that came from Aunt Terrell said, Grant doesn't need to see, he already knows. And that's true. I already knew. The UFO in 75, the first two times I saw it came in so close, there was no doubt as to what I was looking at. It was something pretty wild. So I've never really wanted to see another UFO. But I did. I moved a couple months back to Vancouver, and we have a pool here. And so my son and his wife and the kid and the my daughter-in-law's sister and her family were there, and we were driving around. I had my little grandson on a little push bike, and I'm pushing him around the pool. I'm going toot toot, here we go, dude. And we're racing around the pool on this little push bike. And all of a sudden, everybody starts screaming and yelling, look at you, in the sky, there's a UFO. And there was the big air show. I can't remember the name of the town. They have a big air show here. It
Oh,
was
cool.
happening that same afternoon. And I said to my son, I said, well,
Oh,
which direction is the air show in? And he's pointed in the opposite direction. This thing was sitting in the sky, and it's kind of like a really, really, really bright orb. And it was in the daytime sky. It was in the middle of the afternoon. There was some clouds near it, and I couldn't really see it. And then they sort of pointed it out, and I went, oh, okay, that's cool. And I went, toot toot, here we go. Come on, Kaser, let's go. And off we went. And they're all, and then none of these people are interested in UFOs except for the brother-in-law who keeps saying, oh, what's new with UFOs? And he wants to argue with me about different stuff. And he's the one that's sort of interested in it. Everybody else could care less. I mean, they don't ridicule me for my stuff. But when people start talking and I start talking, then my son goes, oh, here we go again. The old man's going to start talking about UFOs again. We got to listen to this. And so nobody really had interest, but they were all interested in this sighting. They're all looking at this thing. And the brother-in-law was filming, and he's got it, and then makes another film, and I'm basically ignoring him, going around, and they go, "With this UFO, are you gonna watch it?" And I go, "Well, like, what do you want me to do? You want me to make it land and make the little aliens come out, or what?" They say UFO, it's a light in the sky. Forget it. It's just and I just didn't have any interest whatsoever. I was like, it was cool. It was definitely something very anomalous. Very, very bright. It looked like a light of a plane, but you wouldn't have that in the middle of the afternoon. It was probably brighter than the light on a plane coming in to land a jetliner. So that was the first sighting, and then the next one I'll talk about was I actually had two sightings here. The other was we went to Terry Tabando from Coquitlam. So he runs a group. There's a bunch of different groups out here, Surrey, Coquitlam, Vancouver Central. And so he had a Skywatch, and I went, but I said, okay, I'll come to Skywatch. My first time in Vancouver, I go to the Skywatch. And of course, it was the same old thing. I didn't see anything. We're sitting in a circle, and I had shorts on, short sleeve shirt. I didn't realize it was going to get cold that night. And I'm sitting there, but you remember Brian Rue?
Rue.
Rue, yeah. So Brian has his girlfriend Nancy. He's a PhD and an expert on DNA. So I'm always asking her questions about DNA. Chinese lady, and she was sitting there, and we were sitting in the circle, and they were doing the meditation stuff. And all of a sudden, she starts making noise, and right behind her, she felt the energy, and she turned around, and this red orb was there, and she filmed it, and it was actually pretty cool. It was like
Oh,
a
wow.
red orb in behind us, but again, I didn't see anything. So that was the second sighting I saw when I got here. Again, it was better than the one at the pool. But then the interesting one was you and I did an interview with Rob Freeman, and Rob had in the United States the big interest is in the whole thing with the Skywatch program, where they're picking up these UFOs, and there's 9 different UFOs, and none of them match any of the UFOs we've ever seen before. It's like the phenomena says, well, let's give them nine new UFOs. And so they're sitting there and they're filming these things, and they're trying to make it duplicatable so they can actually write, scientific papers and prove that there's this nuts and bolts phenomena, even though it doesn't look like any other nuts and bolts phenomena that's ever been recorded in UFOs. And they have this, what they call the dog whistle. And so Rob Freeman, a friend of yours and I's, who has some money and travels around the world looking for UFOs to sort of vindicate himself for this sighting that he had at 12 years old when he was sitting on top of his house or whatever it was. And so he got a guy out of do you remember the guy's name out of Toronto? That built the thing, the
Oh,
dog whistle, and he's an electrical engineer anyway. So Rob got him to build 2 of these things. They've got the frequencies and all this kind of stuff, so they built it. And when we interviewed them, they actually played this the dog whistle thing, and they changed it to I can't remember what the name of they took it away from the dog whistle because they thought that was demeaning to dogs, but I can't remember it was a UFO whistle or something like that they
okay.
called it. And they took one of these. They were going to take 2 to Shasta. They actually took one. And I was trying to get uh, uh, Bob McGuire to tell me what 2 hours, because the Skywatch people said there was only 2 hours during the day when this thing would show up, which made me sound
Oh, I
made it
didn't know
sound like it
that.
was military, like the military would test this thing every day at the same time. And I'm going like, why would this thing only show
Oh,
up 2 hours the same 2 hours a day? I mean,
that's
UFOs they
weird.
don't get no time, they got no clock. What do they care? And so
I didn't know that.
I was asking Bob McGuire, like, what are the 2 hours? Because I knew that Rob would go in the evening. He was doing the blindfold reading during the day, and all these people were opening. They were actually opening up at this event, and were able to see through the blindfold.
Mm.
And but he would do his Skywatch at night, and I knew they weren't doing the Skywatch people weren't doing their thing at night because they said it was all done during the day. So I'm going to try to tell Rob, don't do it at night. Do it
Mm.
from what this time to this time, because that's when they're claiming they're seeing it. And Bob McGuire said he didn't know at that time what the 2 hours was. But Rob did get a sighting, and he talked about, I think it was half an hour. It was one night, it was like midnight or something like that. And they sat there and watched this thing for half an hour, and they were able to sort of give it commands to go up and down and all this kind of stuff. So they've got on film. I haven't seen the film. Have you seen the film yet? That
Mm-mm.
because Rob definitely would have filmed this thing. And so they did get lucky with this whistle thing that attracts UFOs at Shasta. And I'm sure that Rob, knowing Rob, will be on this thing and trying it in the Toronto area and all different types of places. So there's still a bunch of UFO sighting material going on, and everybody's trying to run this whole thing where they're trying to get it to be duplicatable. Although I know your opinion, maybe I'll get your opinion on this whole thing, but my opinion is that the phenomenon is just laughing. In fact, the latest one they have is this thing with the red square in the sky. It's a 2-dimensional red square in the sky that appears, and everybody goes, "Oh, red square!" And it's like the UFO people going, "Red squares, man! They're really into red squares. Let's put some red squares."
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with the
So,
Skywatcher, like nine different UFOs, but none of them are the same. There's no triangles, there's no Adamski crafts, there's nothing. It's all these different things. And it's almost like the phenomenon. So okay, give them this, give them that, and they keep changing it. Like they're playing this little game of giving you information, but not giving you enough to figure it out. It's to
Hmm.
keep you in awe and curiosity. So, what do you think about this thing? Did you have any contact with Rob during this event when the Shasta thing?
No, I haven't talked to him, and I didn't know about the Red Square, but I have been following some of the Skywatcher stuff, and yeah, I think the same thing is, yeah, I don't think that there's just suddenly for no reason, 10 or whatever it is that they've
Yeah,
figured out how many different craft there is. I don't think that that's just something new. I think it's whether it's that's what they're imagining and that's what's coming back because that's what they're focusing on or that's what they're talking about. So it's just again the reflection, the reflective, you know, um way of the simulation or whatever it is. It's just like you're thinking about something and it's coming back to you. But yeah, I don't think, yeah, because that's exactly why. Why wouldn't it be the Adamski craft? Why wouldn't it be this? So I think it's just like, oh, it's a jellyfish. Because
yeah, jellyfish.
didn't because I think that someone else put out some kind of I don't know if it was George Knapp. I can't remember. I thought that there was something that thing that was floating. I don't know if it was on a military base or I forget what it was, but it was that thing that kind of looked like a jellyfish, that
Yeah,
weird black kind of shape. So it makes me think that if that's what's in the collective consciousness or those
yeah,
guys doing Skywatcher, or whatever, if that's what a lot of people are going, oh, it's a jellyfish thing now. That so it's
yeah.
not necessarily them. It could be like the egregore thing where they're creating it, they're assuming that that's what it's going to be and that's what's coming. So whether it's them making it, it's the reflective nature of it where it's showing them what they want to see. It's going into their brain, seeing, oh, he thinks it's going to be a, it's going to be a like an octopus or a squid thing that and then they're doing it or whether it's just the collective consciousness of what everyone's kind of looking at and that's the reason it's doing it but it has to be yeah I would think it's more
Yeah.
that or what you're saying that it's just saying oh they're all thinking that it's going to be this shape so let's give them this shape
Yeah.
they're
I,
just
I,
messing with them.
I think these guys are trying to get a contract because they discovered it when they were doing a contract trying to track drones or something like that. So I think they're trying to get it because they realize there's going to be this shield thing being this shield over the United States, and it's the ability to pick up objects, and they're trying to get a contract to build something to pick up. Incoming missiles or whatever
Yeah.
like that. But you mentioned egregore. Can you talk a little bit and because I think this is an important thing that you and I have discovered, but a lot of people don't really realize is the power of the human mind. And talk about describe egregores and talk about it in reflection of this Philip experiment. In terms of people don't realize how powerful the mind is, and this was a planned experiment that was, I think, done in Australia and it was done in Scotland, but the main one was done in Toronto.
The Philip experiment, yeah, it was in the 70s, I
Yeah,
think. Was it
yeah,
71 or something?
yeah,
And so it was just a group of people that were trying to see if they could make a ghost. So they sat around and it was like a psychological experiment. And they sat around and they made up they made up a story and they said that we want to this guy to be Philip. He was in Cornwall,
yeah.
England, and he's this age, like whatever it was, 40 years old, and he has a wife, and the wife didn't like him because of something, or he killed her. I can't remember, but they made up a whole story for who Philip was. And then they sat there and they said, like, now let's try and contact this thing. And I think they did it for a year, and nothing ever happened until they decided to start using it like a séance, where they were singing and like having positive energy, playing music and everything. And then they started getting the raps on the table, and then they would communicate back and forth with this being, and they, from the yes no questions and the answers that it was giving, they realized that that is what it was. He was answering as Philip when they were asking it questions. It was responding like it was Philip. So that was so they concluded, I guess, that they had made Philip, like, he was a made up figure in the first place, and then he started being active and responding to their questions. So I think so tulpa is where I think that it started. It was an old Buddhist thing where people could meditate and basically put energy into a thought form. So, and that's the same as what egregores are. Egregores are just like thought forms. So it's like basically you could say that everything that you think about, anything that you give sustained, consistent thought to, even if it's just a question or if it's something that you're thinking about, like someone just dies and you're missing them and you're constantly thinking about them. You're creating with your thoughts all the time. It's just like I read a lot of like old esoteric books, and I was just rereading The Cosmic Doctrine from Dion Fortune. And so she was around in like the 1880s ish, and so one of the ways that she described, I don't know if she uses the word egregore, I think that they called it thought forms in those days, right? And so the thought form is basically that. It's just like this, they call it vehicles. It's just like a vehicle that is attached to you with a thread. And the thread basically means that the more focused intention that you're giving it, you're feeding it. And this thought form becomes like bigger and bigger and gets, you know,
Like,
it's also one of the ways I was going to talk to you about this, about the Davis stuff, the Andrew Jackson or Jackson Davis, the way people channel. This is also how she was saying that is like, if I'm a channeler, I can put this thought that says I really want to find out how this person died. Say I'm investigating missing 411 things. This guy died. I'm trying to help his family figure out where the guy is. I want to figure out what the answer is. So I keep like, dowsing, scrying, doing remote viewing sessions. I'm trying to help the family. I'm thinking about them. I'm looking at the case details. I'm putting all this thought. So all that thought is going into the ether, like around me, and it's actually like alive. And there's a thread attached to me into this. And the more I think about it, the more I'm feeding it. And the more you're feeding it, the more you're giving it life. They used to say that in the old days, like in the 1800s, that you're like giving it life, you're birthing something. And if you keep talking to it and keep thinking about it, it's going to give itself something where it could turn into a poltergeist in your house. It can turn into, so people are just like out there doing CE5s. They want to see a CE5. All you're thinking about, I want to see a UFO. I want an alien to come in my house. I want an alien. I want contact with an alien. Well, then all of a sudden your keys start flying across the room. Like you could be making something, and it's not necessarily an alien. It could be this thought form that could take a life of its own because you're feeding it with this thread that's attached to you. And what the psychics in the 1800s used to say is also spirit from the other planes, like the third or the fourth or the fifth dimension or plane. They would say they see these thought forms, and they say something crazy like they beat a pattern into as an answer. So if you have a question, what happened to this guy? How did he die? The spirit will see that attached to me is this thought form, and I just keep wondering, how did this happen? How did this person die? They'll see that and they'll respond to it. They're acting like this thing is its own creature basically, but they call it a vehicle. And they say that they beat the information into it like wings, and it's kind of like those dishes where you can put sand and then you have the different tones, and then the tones make a pattern. And that's how Dion Fortune and these people in the 1800s were kind of saying that then they're beating the answer into this thought form, and the thought form is still connected to me. So then as I'm still thinking about it or sitting here channeling about it, then through that thread I can also get the information. That's kind of how they explain how channeling works as well. So the other side is like using these thought forms as well to kind of communicate back to you. But also if it's an actual, like how we were saying before about, please give me an alien, let me see an alien, then all of a sudden you start having poltergeist activity in your house. It could just be that you're creating an egregore. You're creating this thought form, which then has a life of its own because you keep thinking about the same thing. And then you could be having something walk through your house, and then you're scared, and then you're thinking about it all the time, and then you're still feeding it. And a lot of the like the Golden Dawn and the Rosicrucians, a lot of these societies used to have this collective thought form of something that they would communicate back and forth with. And that's what these thought forms are. It's just a made up thing that is fed by the collective's intentions and consistent thoughts, and it can give you messages and it can talk back and forth to you, but it's a made up creation basically.
yeah.
That's a
And if
lot.
you go to the bottom line, where I think I'm going and a lot of people are headed, is this whole idea that consciousness is primary. and that it's all made up stuff, that we're manifesting the world as we go along. It's not like God created the heaven and earth and stuck us in it with and put the consciousness in us. It's this idea that Bashar will promote is that you have to realize how you build your reality, that you're actually building this thing, and it's all built out of consciousness. And the last thing, and we'll shut it down. I mean, I mentioned to you that I'd run into this medium in Vancouver, and I'm gonna try. She offered me to be a sitter. She has a meeting every Thursday or something where she has 12 mediums come together, and they all just sort of talk about what they're picking up. So I can be a sitter in that group and just sit there, and maybe they'll say something about, one of my relatives or whatever. But one of the things that she did mention, I forgot to tell you, is that her and her neighbor are busy doing different stuff, and that they do table tipping. And I said,
Mm.
really? And she starts talking about, yeah, I was on one leg and all this stuff. And I said, holy cow. So I may actually get to see this. I've never seen this table tipping, but she claims that they're pretty good at doing this table tipping thing. And then the other thing she mentioned, because we're doing UFO sightings, and there's keep more UFO sightings keep popping in all the time as we talk about UFO sightings. I thought there's just one or two. Now there's the last one I want to talk about. She mentioned the fact that she lives on the 18th floor. She lives in Burnaby, up on the 18th floor of this apartment block, and her and this neighbor were sitting on the apartment block, and she said the UFO appeared, and she said it was below them, and below the UFO was this fog, almost like you remember Paula Harris talking about when the Zendra opened, this fog sort of appeared, and they had to hold hands until they got through the fog into the Zendra, and then it would disappear. She said this fog was there, so people below the UFO wouldn't have seen the UFO on the ground, but she said it was 50 times bigger than a football field. She said 50 times. I went, 50 times? She said, yeah, and they're down looking at it from the 18th floor. And you start to wonder, like, why would nobody see this if it was 50 times? And you get this idea, maybe just her and her neighbor actually saw it.
Mm.
It was like this whole idea that they can appear to whoever they want. They can, if you're being abducted, they can shut off your partner, or you're trying to wake them up and you can't wake them up and you're in your own little world. People talk about this thing that you seem to be in this zone where everything else is cut off. There's nobody else driving down the road, stuff like
Hmm.
that. So it's an interesting world. And it's almost like where Jim Semivan talked about it, where one of his explanations for one of the reasons they don't do the disclosure thing is he called it indigestible. He
Mm.
talks about the fact that 53% of people in the United States are reading at a grade six level, 22% of people are functionally illiterate in the United States, and then you're going to take all
Wow.
this crap and drop it on them? Are
Oh
you
yeah.
kidding me? And it's when you start to realize how complex, because he said that he got the briefing. I don't know if he's told the story. He got the briefing where they told him get a room for 8 hours. So he gets this briefing
Mm.
room inside the CIA, and then he said these guys come in and they're scientists and military contractors, and he said they have as many tickets as I have. And so he's like the top spy in the United States. He got all these clearances. He said they had as many clearances as he had,
Mm.
and that they were able to walk around the CIA without any escorts. So they're very high level officials who are doing this UFO briefing. And he sits in the room and he said, they scared the living shit out of me for 7 hours. It went on for
Wow.
7 hours. And they said, okay, would you like another briefing? He said, no, I've seen enough. And for 3 months, he walked around and he said his head was just spinning for three
Mm.
months. And his wife had asked him what's wrong. And he said he just blew him away. And then so he was asked by James Ian Dolly, well, what did they discover something? And he said, yeah, they've discovered stuff. And he said, well, what did they discover? And he said, well, nothing really about UFOs. It was all that psi stuff, psychokinesis, all this stuff. And he claimed that they had it said, yeah, this is real, this is real, this is real. All the psi stuff is real, and that the UFOs, they were sort of in the dark. But his conclusion after seeing that briefing is there's absolutely no way, if he, as top spy in this head
Mm.
of covert ops, was blown away by this briefing and set him off for 3 months. If you drop this stuff on, that's where he said it was indigestible. The guy told him,
Mm.
you just can't drop this stuff on people, because you and I know, most people just think it's like, a flying saucer comes, a little metal flying saucer with a couple of aliens in it. And you and I know it's way more complex than
Mm.
that. And you start looking at it, and it gets pretty weird. And
Mm.
you start to wonder, what's real, what's not real, what am I seeing, and how,
Yeah.
how does reality actually work? It's just so complex and so amazing that the average person living their life, paying their bills, and taking their kid to soccer practice and stuff like that, they just wouldn't be able to handle it.
Hmm. Totally. I agree. Yeah.
Okay, so let's cut it down and let's go to the thing I'm working on now. My latest obsession is
All
the channeling thing.
right. Bye.